Tonight, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris visit swing states in the final frenetic days of the US election. Good evening, Charlotte Hamlyn with ABC News. Interstate tradies offered $10,000 to head west and help ease the housing crisis. Police charge a woman over bizarre attacks on 3 women and a dog in Perth's Kings Park. And Fremantle to host the Bombers in the first week of the AFLW finals after a win over the Bulldogs at home. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have set a frantic pace in the final days before the US election, visiting multiple swing states to try to get their messages across. Both candidates have focused on their appeal to women in a campaign where the gender divide has become a defining feature. North America correspondent Jade McMillan begins our coverage tonight from the battleground state of Michigan.
Now, Kamala, take my Pamela.
A last-minute cameo on late-night TV. Kamala Harris coming face-to-face with the comedian who's portrayed her on Saturday Night Live.
I'm going to vote for us. Great. Any chance you are registered in Pennsylvania?
In the nation's capital, women marched to the White House in support of the Vice President.
First black woman. I'm a black woman, and she represents me.
She will lead our country forward.
The gender gap is stark in this campaign. Kamala Harris is performing better with women, while Donald Trump attracts more support from men.
There's some women that are very beautiful in the audience. I would never say that, because if I said like that, her, we got a lot of her. If I said they were beautiful, that's the end of my political career.
In the battleground states of North Carolina and Georgia, the Vice President continued her focus on reproductive rights.
Ours is a fight for freedom. Like the fundamental freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do.
Donald Trump also campaigned in North Carolina, but took a detour to Virginia, a state not widely considered to be in play for Republicans.
I could have said the hell with everything. I could have had the greatest life in the world. Instead, I got missing a little piece of my ear.
His supporters in Arizona trying to boost turnout in their state to get the former president over the line.
I just think that he's the best choice for America. His stance on immigration and the economy, and I think he brings more people together than he tears apart.
The candidates have narrowed their focus in the final days of this extraordinary campaign to states like here in Michigan and Pennsylvania, part of the so-called blue wall that could hand either side the keys to the White House.
This is a famous...
More than 70 million people have already voted. There are still millions more to reach in the final 2 days. Jade McMillan, ABC News, Detroit, Michigan.
Just days out from the election, the latest polling suggests the race for the White House is still neck and neck. And the numbers get even closer when you look at the crucial swing states. US election analyst Casey Briggs examines what it could all mean when polls have closed.
It's only a few days now until Election Day, and the contest itself is a battle of 50 states and the first to 270 Electoral College votes. But you've been hearing mostly about just these 7 battleground states, the northern ones, Pennsylvania, Michigan and Wisconsin. The southern states, we've got Georgia and North Carolina, and out west, the states of Arizona and Nevada. Polls are close, within the margin of error in all of them. But if the person who's currently leading in polling goes on to win that state, this would be the result. Kamala Harris on 251, Donald Trump on 268, with Pennsylvania genuinely even Stevens, the winner there determining the next president. But polls aren't precise. And if the polls miss in Trump's favour, well, he could potentially win all 3 of these swing states up in the Rust Belt. And that would give him a comfortable election win. And if the polls miss in Harris's favour, well, you could easily see the reverse. Kamala Harris holding on and sweeping those so-called blue wall states. She'd be in the hunt in the southern states too, but those alone would be enough to hand Harris the win. The polls are close, but that doesn't necessarily mean the final result in the Electoral College will be a nail-biter. But we'll have to wait a few days to see, well, any votes, because right now the race to 270 stands at 0 Electoral College votes apiece. And if it is a nail-biter, it could take days for one of these candidates to hit 270.
And if the election does go down to the wire, there's growing concern about how parts of the American electorate will respond to a contested vote in the courts. There are signs the groundwork is being laid in key swing states for possible challenges to the result. North America correspondent Barbara Miller reports from Pennsylvania, a state which could prove decisive in the race for the White House.
Bucks County is the kind of place this election could be won or lost. The Democrats took Bucks outside Philadelphia in 2016 and 2020, but not by much.
I'm here to deliver Pennsylvania for Donald J. Trump.
When Trump became the primary nominee for the Republican Party, I switched parties. I am now Democrat, and I'm very passionate about being on the right side of history.
Donald Trump claimed the last election was rigged, leading to the violent insurrection of January the 6th.
38,000 Trump cookies.
Its shadow still hangs over this race.
If it's Harris, would you accept that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then did Donald Trump win in 2020?
I don't have the facts on that one.
And in communities like this across the swing states, there are fears the groundwork is being laid for another contested result. After an early voting line was briefly cut off, the Trump campaign went to court and got the deadline extended.
We do have wider concerns about voter suppression and election integrity, and the plan is to swamp it out by volume. We need everybody to turn out to vote.
Tens of millions of Americans have already cast their ballot. Volunteers go door to door to make sure the rest actually turn up on Election Day.
Right now, I am going every day. And I'm doing like 4 hours.
If I garnered one vote, I don't care. That's worth it to me. I don't know how you can look at this man and not think he's an idiot.
Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump.
This extraordinary campaign began as a rematch until Joe Biden's shocking debate performance.
With the COVID, with dealing with.
Then came an attempt on Donald Trump's life. The master showman instinctively seizing the moment. Biden finally saw the writing on the wall.
So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
When Pennsylvania was called for Joe Biden in 2020, it took him over the 270 Electoral College votes needed to secure the White House. He won the state by 80,000 votes. Margins in several other swing states were even smaller. Biden took Arizona by just over 10,000 votes, Georgia by 12,000, and Wisconsin by 20,000. Meaning that although overall Joe Biden got 7 million more votes than Donald Trump, victory came down to just tens of thousands. 4 years on, polls suggest another very tight race in all 7 swing states.
Misinformation and conspiracy theories are swirling about election fraud, some of them amplified by Elon Musk. And there's a real sense here that this could be the calm before the storm.
Do you think, however the election falls, there's going to be legal challenges?
It depends. If it's close, yes. That's why I'm here for a landslide.
I expect it here in Bucks County. They're already trying to come up with the works. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality. They're going to try to claim it no matter what. So as long as we have judges and courts in this country, I think we'll be okay, because in 2020, every one of their lawsuits failed.
Both camps throwing everything at it in the hope of victory will be decisive. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Surveys have consistently indicated the economy is the major issue for Americans at the election, but there are concerns about the plans of both candidates, as Alan Kohler explains.
When Americans vote on Tuesday, they'll be choosing between economics and, well, something else. Republican candidate Donald Trump has three main economic policies: deport at least 11 million illegal immigrants, 60% tariffs on imports from China and up to 20% on everyone else, and cut the company tax rate from 21 to 15%, and a series of other income tax cuts. Democrat candidate Kamala Harris wants to increase the company tax rate to 28% and then spend more than that would raise on extra child support, plus a few other programs. So either candidate would blow out an already blown out federal budget. Here are their bottom lines. So it's a choice between an increase in the US federal deficit of $3.5 trillion under Harris or $7.5 trillion under Trump, and possibly twice that depending on how much money the tariffs would raise, which probably wouldn't be much since imports would dry up as prices increased. Economists think it would definitely reignite inflation, which is why, as Trump's poll numbers have improved, the US dollar has been rising and the Australian dollar falling, because it would mean rate cuts in the US would be off. But Trump's biggest economic policy is mass deportations. Estimates of the impact of that on American GDP range up to 8.9%. So a severe recession, or even a depression. That's if it could be done, of course, which is very unlikely. Economists don't like the rest of Trump's policies either, versus their support for Kamala Harris's policies. More than half of them even support the increase in the company tax rate, and the only things they don't like are the first home buyer grants and penalties for price gouging. But nobody listens to economists these days, especially Trump voters.
To other news now, and Australians burdened with student debt will have 20% of their loans wiped as part of Labor's pre-election pitch aimed at easing cost of living pressures for young people. It's part of a $500 million package, which the coalition has labelled a cash splash in place of real reform.
It's beginning to look a lot like an election campaign. Big energy and big promises. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese addressing the party faithful in Adelaide with a US-style stump speech.
We're so determined to win the election next year.
Vowing to expand and legislate access to fee-free TAFE for Australians and wipe billions of dollars in unpaid student loans if returned to power.
A re-elected Labor government will take 20% off student debt for everyone who has one.
Under the pitch, a university graduate with the average debt of about $27,000 would see more than $5,000 wiped from their outstanding loan. It builds on yesterday's promise to lift the income threshold from when people have to start paying off their debt from $54,000 to $67,000. All up, the government's promising to cut close to $20 billion in student loan debt for more than 3 million Australians.
I think that's great to hear. It's certainly not enough. I probably would go back if I knew that they were going to do that.
The move will cost the budget $500 million, but the government argues it will address intergenerational inequity without driving up inflation.
For a lot of young people, they're straight out of uni, they're on a low income, and they already have to start paying off their HECS bill. This gets them a little bit of relief.
This isn't real reform. This doesn't change the student fees that somebody who starts uni next year pays. This is simply a cash splash.
After a turbulent week with claims the Prime Minister received free flight upgrades from Qantas, the government wants to regain control of the agenda, using this announcement to try to shift the focus back to cost of living issues. But that's proving difficult. With revelations the Education Minister solicited and received the flight benefit in 2019.
Good pick up, mate. That was a personal trip. That was a situation where I had just got out of hospital. I had surgery on my leg.
Politicians touching down in Canberra ahead of Parliament's return.
Just looking forward to a good week. Labor's focused on building Australia's future.
Presumably, flying economy. Stephanie Dalzell, ABC News, Canberra.
Tradies will be offered thousands of dollars to move to Western Australia from interstate to help ease labour shortages and drive down construction costs for homes. It comes as the Liberals proposed a $500 million infrastructure investment fund they say will help boost the state's housing supply by 100,000 homes.
$10,000 to poach much-needed tradies from other states and New Zealand.
Whether that's subcontractors coming to work for some of the big builders or come and set up shop and have their own businesses based here in Perth, if they're already considering it, certainly that incentive would make a difference in terms of making that decision to come.
And trade up to paradise.
A property council proposal similar to Queensland's Tradies in Paradise cash incentive, set to be picked up by the Cook government in some form.
There's lots of reasons why we want tradies to come to WA, and there's lots of reasons why they would. Cost of living here is cheaper than on the East Coast. Housing is cheaper than on the East Coast.
But getting enough of that housing built is the problem.
Cost of construction is such that, it's costing more to build the apartments than what they're able to be sold for, which makes it really difficult for them to be delivered.
The Liberals aiming to push costs down through a $500 million housing fund, contributing to project infrastructure and fees and charges on top of the government's existing $80 million fund.
We are a long way from meeting our targets, which are approximately 25 to 26,000 homes annually to meet those targets. This will unlock significant greenfield sites and apartments to get closer to those targets.
This is just an opportunity to get more projects viable sooner, which will help to put a lid on some of those cost escalations.
The government's claiming it's just an imitation of their fund.
Good on them for copying us, but I make the point at the time he said it would not be effective and that we were effectively throwing money at property developers.
The housing crisis has got worse since that funding allocation was made. The rental price is now, I think the median rental price is north of $650.
We're in the middle of a housing crisis at the moment, and it's probably not the best time to be politicising housing policy.
Industry calling on the major parties to support any good policies that help to get more homes built. Nick Perpich, ABC News.
A 41-year-old woman has appeared in court on charges related to 3 separate indecent assaults near the War Memorial in Kings Park yesterday morning. Police say the woman attacked a female dog walker in her 50s, kicking and punching her several times before trying to force her to eat dog biscuits and then kicking the dog. She allegedly choked a woman in her 70s, and in a third incident, she's accused of throwing a woman's mobile phone into the water surrounding the memorial's eternal flame. The woman's been charged with offences including 5 counts of indecent assault. She's been remanded in custody until her next court appearance on November 29. Israel is again bombarding Lebanon, including the capital Beirut, as negotiations continue over a potential peace deal. 11 were wounded in southern Beirut after an Israeli airstrike, and Hezbollah returned fire, launching rockets into Israel. The latest strikes have raised Lebanon's death toll to nearly 2,900, with more than 13,000 wounded. It comes as Israeli commandos captured a senior Hezbollah official in an operation on northern Lebanon's coast on Friday. The UK has a new opposition leader after Kemi Badenoch was elected the leader of the Conservative Party. The Essex MP fought off her rival to win the leadership with more than 50% of the vote. Ms Badenoch takes over from Rishi Sunak, whose cabinet she served in when he was Prime Minister. An army of 10,000 soldiers and police have been deployed in Spain to assist with recovery efforts after devastating floods. The death toll is now more than 200 and is expected to climb further still. Heavy rain sent torrents of water through the Valencia region, turning streets into raging rivers and leaving entire towns cut off.
In just 8 hours, a year's worth of rain was dumped on the Spanish region of Valencia. Dramatic rescue operations took place from the air as rescue crews scrambled to save lives in danger. As the waterline dropped, the full impact was revealed. A sea of mud, streets in ruin, shops, homes and communities completely devastated. Rescuers overwhelmed and exhausted as the search for victims continues.
There were lots of people in the cars on the first floor, and when the water arrived, they left, as they thought water was not going to reach the first floor, but when it did, they said, "Let's go, let's go."
More than 200 people have been killed, but that toll is expected to rise as Spain's government rushes in aid to help with recovery efforts.
I have ordered the deployment of a Navy amphibious ship with accommodation, surgery operating rooms, helicopters and a fleet of support vehicles urgently to the area.
From the air, the true scale of the devastation can be most clearly seen. These satellite images revealing the extent of the flooding. But for others, it only takes a look out of the window.
My wife and I don't want to live here anymore. It's already a nightmare. As soon as a bit of rain comes down, you just can't. At the end, you lose everything. I'm sorry. I feel helpless. I feel powerless. And the government does nothing.
Thousands of volunteers are now helping authorities deliver food, water and rebuilding. A community banding together in the most shattering of moments. Henry Zwartz, ABC News.
It's time for sport now with Tom Wildie. And Tom, the Dockers secure a home AFLW final.
Yeah, Wildie will host Essendon in an elimination final next week. Charlotte, after a 35-21 victory over the Western Bulldogs at Fremantle Oval, secured 5th spot on the ladder. Mim Strom put in a late nomination for Mark of the Year early in the opening term, but it was the Bulldogs who did the scoring, kicking the first 2 goals. The Dockers got going in the second, kicking 4 of the next 5 majors to get home by 14 points for just their second home win of the season. Wildie and the Bombers will face off at Fremantle Oval at 4 p.m. on Saturday. Port Adelaide will host an elimination final in its maiden AFLW final series after defeating the Giants in a 1-point thriller at Alberton Oval. The Giants led early before a flurry of late goals turned the game as the Power clinched the win in the final minute. Meanwhile, Hawthorn locked in a top 2 finish after kicking away late against the Tigers. Brisbane finished 3rd and will face the Hawks in week 1 of the finals after smashing St Kilda by 27 points. And last night, Essendon soared into the top 8 with a 36-point victory over Carlton.
Port Adelaide already had a maiden final spot locked up, but a win was enough to secure a home eliminator. The Giants had other ideas early with 4 first-half goals to lead by 9 at the half.
Down a Goldsworthy, who is a goal stick.
The Power trailed by 11 at the final change and looked out of the game before stunning the Giants with 2 late goals. Gemma Houghton securing a home final at Alberton next week, with a major in the final minute.
She comes, she's taken a big mark. Can she kick a big goal? Oh, you bet she can, Gemma Houghton!
Hawthorn's surprise season continues with the Hawks to host a qualifying final after edging ahead of the Tigers at Punt Road. Only 2 points separated the two sides midway through the final term. The Hawks kicking 3 late goals to cement a top 2 spot.
Ashmore.
They'll host Brisbane in week 1 of finals after the Lions had to settle for 3rd despite smashing the Saints at Moorabbin.
Anderson gets a look. Ali straightens up and goals.
6 goals in the 3rd quarter blew the game open, including 4 goals in just 4 minutes of play.
Hartle, she turns, she snaps and she goals as well.
Essendon will be sweating on Bonnie Toogood's scan results after she left the field with an ankle injury in the team's win over Carlton last night. Despite losing the star forward, the Bombers booked a place in back-to-back final series with a win over the Blues.
G for goal, they're in. Essendon is finals bound.
The victory moved them above Melbourne into the top 8, ending the Demons' season. Cameron Slessor, ABC News.
Nathan McSweeney has enhanced his chances of a Test debut with an unbeaten 88 in Australia A's 3-wicket win over India A in Mackay. Former Australia captain Mark Taylor says he would choose McSweeney for this month's first Test against India.
This was an emphatic finish to the game and a strong statement from Nathan McSweeney as he looks to take the step up from Australia A to the Test team.
Nathan McSweeney finishes unbeaten on 88. A wonderful individual performance by the skipper.
I would probably go for McSweeney at the moment. He's the guy making some runs at the moment. Bear in mind, though, he's not actually an opener. He bats at 3 for South Australia. He's batting at 4 at the moment. It would be a bit of the roll of the dice, but as I said a moment ago, I'd go for Youth and give him a go.
While the other potential Test openers, Sam Constas, Cameron Bancroft and Marcus Harris, failed to take their chances.
And is it given? It is.
25-year-old McSweeney top scored in both innings.
Nathan McSweeney is knocking down that door.
Real confident in my game, and I think, I'm progressing and I'm batting some of the best innings I've played, and hopefully I can continue to learn and get better, and if the opportunity comes, I feel like I'm ready.
Australia's captain, Pat Cummins, hinted that the player who comes in for the first Test against India is likely to be a newcomer.
Whoever does get picked, they've experienced as much pressure as they might get in the Test debut anyway, so it means they're pretty well placed.
There'll be one more tour game against India A before the selectors name the team. In the meantime, some of the Test stars will be in one-day mode, with a 3-game series against Pakistan starting at the MCG tomorrow. Duncan Huntsdale, ABC News.
The Perth Wildcats have crashed back to earth after back-to-back wins, thrashed by South East Melbourne, 100-76 in Melbourne. A 35-point opening quarter set the tone for the Phoenix, who have recovered from a terrible start to the season to win 4 of their last 5. The Wildcats struggled without the injured Bryce Cotton, Elijah Pepper the standout, finishing with 17 points. In Sydney, the Kings were far too good for the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, Kuat Noi finishing with 26 points as Sydney ran out 88-60 winners. And the Perth Lynx have started their WNBL season with a 94-79 win over the Southside Flyers. Captain Annalie Maley starred with 22 points and 12 rebounds. The Lynx next host Townsville on Wednesday. Perth Glory has been thrashed 5-2 by Melbourne City in the opening round of the A-League women's competition. City trailed for most of the match before brushing the visitors aside with 5 goals in a memorable win at Casey Fields. And the Newcastle Jets recovered from a slow start to salvage a 2-2 draw with the Western Sydney Wanderers in Cessnock. Australian Formula One driver Oscar Piastri was put in an awkward position at the Sao Paulo Formula One sprint. The 23-year-old secured pole position for the race and led until the final 2 laps. With McLaren teammate Lando Norris chasing a World Championship title, Piastri had to surrender his position and let Norris through on team orders. The British driver's mission to close the gap on season leader Max Verstappen in qualifying has been pushed back after heavy rain on the track.
Today was the result that we wanted. Oscar deserved it, but yeah, we're doing what we have to do. So I thank him and the team, and we had great pace. So looking forward to qualifying and the race tomorrow.
And Charlotte, that's the latest in sport.
Thanks very much, Tom. Now to the weather, and right now in the city it's 17 degrees. The humidity is 61%. Perth's minimum was 13 degrees at 5:15 this morning, rising to a top of 22 just after lunchtime. The state's coolest spot was Rocky Gully South with a low of 7 degrees overnight, and 43 was the state's hottest temperature today at a number of different spots in the north, including Fitzroy Crossing and Marble Bar. To the satellite, there is cloud bringing showers and storms to the east of the state, and there could be a thunderstorm or two over central and northwestern parts. A broad trough is persisting across inland WA. A new ridge is building near the south coast. A cold front will move over the southwest on Tuesday and another on Wednesday. Around the country tomorrow, a shower or two for Sydney, partly cloudy for Melbourne and Canberra, fine in Brisbane, cloud clearing in Adelaide, a possible shower for Darwin and cloudy in Hobart. Back to WA, it's remaining very hot over inland parts of the north and east of the state. Possible showers and thunderstorms over the north and west Kimberley, north interior and eastern parts of the south interior. There is a slight chance of a shower about the southwest Gascoyne and Euclid coasts, and also a possible shower for the far southwest district too. A mostly sunny day in Perth tomorrow with light winds becoming west to southwesterly 20 to 30 kilometres an hour in the morning, a top of 23 after a low of 11. Sunrise will be at 5:16, setting at 6:44. And looking ahead, a shower or two and 22 degrees on Tuesday. The wet weather could drag into Wednesday, but then it's back to sunny 22 on Thursday, 27 Friday, and hitting 30 degrees on Saturday. And that is ABC News for this Sunday. You can stay up to date with ABC News online or watch the latest anytime on ABC iView. Thank you for your company this weekend. Good night.